Today's question is a mystery until we open it out of the box and then we read it.
Hello, it's me again. I'm calling from a faraway land. Pick up the phone. I'm calling from a different time zone. Heard you are a pretty good source for major topics in art discourse. Hello, I'll leave my questions as a message at the dial tone.
We're back!
Yeah. New question, new day. Who dis?
It's Art
Today
Discourse.
on Art Discourse, we are going to talk about
Should my applications look different for different spaces? We get asked this a lot.
yes. The short answer is yes, it should look different. The long answer is maybe like a yes, no, and then there's a why.
Yeah, I feel like definitely why. Why should it look different? It
Okay.
should, yeah.
Where do you want to start?
You start.
Of course your application should look different. It should be different for whatever it is that you're applying to.
Mhm.
If you are applying to like a gallery, it's going to look different than say applying for a part-time sessional teaching job, right? They'll look quite different from one another. I think that they are supposed to be different and feel different, but like maybe branding and aesthetic wise, they should be similar, right?
You're funny.
That's why it should be like a yes, no. Yes, they should be different, but no, they shouldn't be different.
Yeah, I think that the yes, it should be different is in relation to what is in the application.
Yeah.
So Kyle and I, for example, we usually have one kind of big file that has everything. All the work, all the craft prints, all of the fine art prints, paintings, installations, blah, blah, blah. We just have a giant folder that says projects and jobs. And each thing that we do, all of the footage, everything is held in different folders and they're all in one space. We also have just a giant CV that we each just add to as we move along. And it, for me, is just in a Google Doc. So it's not formatted, it's not nice looking, it's just a big giant list. It's separated into things, but
it could be nicely formatted, and you could save yourself the trouble of like whatever.
I guess, but I never send out the big giant list.
No.
And this is where the like, yes, it needs to be different because you then will look at whatever you're applying for. So say I'm applying for an exhibition and it's in collaboration with another artist or maybe a couple other artists and it's focused on printmaking. So then I'll go to my folder with all my stuff and I will look for images of work that best exhibits the fact that I've done public exhibitions before, that I know about printmaking, and I'll pick the images that are 1, in focus, 2, look nice, and 3, illustrate the strengths that I have in those areas. Then I'll go to my CV and I will curate out all of the shows, talks, publications, whatever that shows a strength in those areas. So if I want to work with the public, I might not just pick exhibitions where I've worked with the public. I might also highlight talks that I've done in schools or workshops that I've done with large groups, that sort of thing. And then I'll put that all into a CV. Most of the time places want to see CVs that are about 2 pages long. Otherwise it just looks like you didn't try to edit anything out and you didn't curate it to fit within the scope of whatever you're applying for. And then I'll also go to the folder that has all of my different artist statements. and I'll usually craft something that might have similar elements, because usually like theme-wise and material-wise I'm working similarly, but I'll create a statement for that project, or a proposal, or however it's being asked for me to pitch it, that is like tailor-made for that particular grant or show or whatever it is.
Like Chrissy was saying, like you take bits of those and you tailor it, because an artist statement for a public space will be very different than the artist statement you make for like applying to a grant. Unless the grant is like about making the art in the public space, then it might sound like it might be a little bit similar. But like every application that you make, you should at least be taking some time to tailor it to that.
Yeah.
Like there's definitely like kind of like you can make like a default like I'm applying to a gallery kind of application, but you're still going to change it. You're still going to like address some specific things in order to kind of tweak it to better your, I guess, like your communication with the gallery. I was just thinking about it being like a job interview where you walk in and the overwhelming person starts rambling off like every single thing they have ever done chronologically from like 20 years ago till now, versus the applicant that comes in and talks about the specific projects that relate to the job that they're trying to apply for.
Yeah, that is exactly it. I think if you think of it like, it's usually a small group of people looking at these applications, journeying them, and they know where they're working or who they're working for and what the purpose of that space is. So if it's an artist-run center, usually the board of that artist-run center is very passionate about that space, and they know that space's mandate, they know that space's history, they know the trajectory of that space, how it works within the community. And so when you're writing an artist statement or a proposal or a cover letter, and it's not just a generic like addressing to anyone, but it's a very specific message to that group of people and that specific space. You know, you talk about, you show, I guess, that you've actually looked into that space and you're excited about showing there. You can really read that excitement. When we get an application for Sparkbox that like says to us that, you know, they know what we do, they know where we are, they know what we're interested in, and it aligns really well with what they're interested in and what they're making, and you know, there's this, I don't know, I guess like this enthusiasm about not just making something somewhere or showing something somewhere, but showing something in that place. That reads on the page, and it does make you very like excited to get to know that person and to work with that person, because they've done the work to show that they know what they're getting into and they know why this collaboration is going to benefit everybody.
Totally true.
Yeah.
Like when they mention, like an application mentions about like, we're a non-toxic studio, and an application mentions like trying to move away from toxicity, like that's like clearly them having, like that is a leg up in the application world. When it comes to like making your application different, like Chrissy was talking about, it is a less daunting task when you're really organized and when you are like have your bits and bobs. And so we, like Chrissy was mentioning, we put all of our photos into one section, we put all of the art into one section, we put all of our artist statement into one section, and then there's like a section that has like all of our past applications that we have ever applied to. So like sometimes we will pillage from those to improve upon this current thing. But I think like when it comes to like your artist statement, when it comes to the written thing, I don't think your biography changes too much.
No, it just,
I think you just get,
with those.
I think you get better at, I guess, bragging. I guess that's what you're supposed to do.
Accolades.
The accolades. But being organized will let you kind of like mold your application easier. If you're disorganized, it is a mess. And so I think that there are some things that you should always just kind of keep the same, such as how you name a file, right? When you name all of your artwork, it should just contain like your name, the name of the piece, the size and dimensions, the year, kind of any of that basic information that would be on like a little sticker beside your artwork hanging in space, or any of the information that's needed when you perhaps get cited in a magazine, or you get cited somewhere else. So that file is always just at the ready, at the correct resolution, which should be like 1920 by 1080 pixels or bigger, because not all artwork is that ratio. And when all that stuff is just there, when you go to make that custom application, it's just those things are done.
Yeah.
And so when I say like things, it should be different, but it should also be the same, which is like the files should always just be the same, how you kind of go about building it. I don't know, maybe you have an opinion on this, like the voice of how you talk about yourself. Do you think that should change between applications? Or do you think that, like, you know, if you're applying to like a small little residency program like us versus applying to, say, the Canada Council for the Arts or the Ontario Council for the Arts?
I do think you can change the way you talk about your work and talk about yourself, and that can shift between maybe very formal to informal depending on the space. You know, you have to trust your gut on this, that you can shift the way you talk to match what you think the environment is going to be like in that space. I mean, we've gotten applications where I know the artist statement was written in a more storytelling language because that's the impression that we give to people, and it works for us.
Yeah.
You know, I really appreciate that, you know, shift away from the traditional. I think after reading and looking at so many applications, like just tons and tons of applications over the years, you do start to see the formula of it, and the formula of the writing, you know, the language that's just used over and over and over again. And as soon as anybody takes a little tiny step outside of that, you're immediately drawn to it. It's like a tiny shift is like a breath of fresh air. So I think, you know, you have to trust yourself, but taking risks on how you format something, how you structure it, what language you use, I think sometimes those can be really like good risks to take.
Okay, so when it comes to applications, it's about being somewhat organized, it's about being flexible. And I think like a big chunk of an application is typically the individual trying to describe what it is that they do. Mm-hmm. And I don't think there's like a proper formula, like it needs to be this very academic or this very casual. And I think that like we've established that like it really benefits you to choose the voice based upon the space. And I think that with the artist statement, because it's generally one of the components of an application, I don't think that it needs to be this thing that encompasses your entire artwork history.
No.
It doesn't need to be this big umbrella, and it doesn't need to be this groundbreaking kind of statement. And I prefer applications that feel more project-based, where like the application and the artist statement is like specifically talking about that, what they're intending to do. It's not just like this overarching, like this is like the sum career of your entire artistic career. And I think that thinking about that artist statement as a project base, I think takes away a bit of that stress of having to write this encompassing artist statement.
Yeah. All right, so in summation, be well organized.
Yeah.
Try to do your best to document everything that you do in your artistic career, whether that be exhibitions, workshops, talks, whatever, publications, press. Have some sort of folder where all of that information is being stored so that you can access it. Also keeping, like Kyle said, past applications in that space so you can look at what you've done. And I would add to that when possible and when you feel comfortable, reach out if you get rejected. Reach out to the space or the grantor or whoever and see if they have any feedback. If there was a jury, maybe they can give you some feedback, and then add those jury notes to that grant application. That's something that I do for us, and it's very helpful because then you can see the notes and the application all in one space, and you can start just modifying it in your own time. So you have your organization, check. Then you're going to really look at whatever it is you're applying for, and make some notes about who they are, what they do, why they do what they do, and then how you are answering any of those calls. How do you fit in? And then look at the project that you want to pitch to them, write out what that project is in its essence, and then go through your big file and start pulling out the work, the shows, the press, whatever, that answers those calls the best and answers what your project is the best, and then build your application based on that.
Yep. And when it comes to like the CV and it comes to some of the other things that are just kind of that, just those things that we do for whatever reason, like starting with like a master copy of your CV where it contains everything and you just put it all into that place, it makes it very easy to just copy and paste out what you want.
Yeah.
And it should just copy and paste into a document that's well formatted.
I think that's it.
Well, so don't get discouraged if your application does not get accepted. It is very common for you to fail many times before you get a grant.
Yeah. Or show or whatever, not just grant.
It's kind of the nature of how it goes. It's also a learning curve of how to compile and build them, and as you go, you will get better at them. So when you are applying, don't get discouraged if nobody wants to fund what you're doing.
I hope that that's helpful. And as always, we want to hear back from you. What do you think works? How do you go about organizing these types of things? Let us know in the comments below, and we'll see you next time.
If you enjoyed this video, could you do two things for me? Could you like it? And could you subscribe to our channel? Both of these things help us out tremendously. A big shout out to all of our patrons. Your continued support is amazing, and we really appreciate the encouragement to continue making these videos. If you want to become a patron, you can see the link below in the description.
In Art Discourse.